As we know, there are many different ways of practicing meditation, and that all comes down to two techniques. That's called samatha and vipassana. So that's a concentration meditation and insight meditation. When we are paying attention to any objects, whether the breath or whether the object, the colors or the shapes or the crystals, or reciting the names, and that is the way to gain the concentration. Basically disconnecting the distractions, and we voluntarily distract ourselves from other rest of the distractions to one distraction, that is intended object. So we pay attention to that. This requires a continuous paying attention to it, and focused attention is there. I like that. And then the second, this insight meditation, then this requires a certain a technique only. And there are many techniques that doesn't apply. You cannot practice like the reciting the words. You cannot develop into the insight unless you leave that recitation and bring your attention back to other factors. Then you can practice the insight. Whereas there are some techniques which we can practice straight away, both the concentration and insight meditation, and that is the breath-related objects. Right? So the breath-related objects we can practice both at the same time or separately. Now when we are paying attention to the breath in the abdomen, then again, as I have said, we are not focusing on the breath. So we have to separate the breath and the sensation of the breath in the abdomen. And in the meantime, if we are practicing the breath in our nose, and then we have to stick with that breath in our nose to begin with, simply to gain the concentration to start off. So once our mind is concentrated, then so we don't need to worry much. So we will be able to see the natural phenomena that is taking place. And in terms of a long breath and a short breath, a coarse breath or a subtle breaths, then again, the more our mind settles, then the greater we will be aware of these changes. And then not only aware of those changes, then we also will not be attached to it. And knowing the different sensations and different phenomena on that. So that's why it is obvious that we will see in various ways. So which is very common, but when we are practicing, we should be adapting one at a time to begin with. That's why I said that on the Wednesday nights, I will be focusing on the observation of the breath in our belly, simply just to focus on that. And when we are talking about the other dhammas, then we can relate to only this one. Having said that, doesn't mean that you can't practice others, other techniques. But just separate on Wednesday night. So today, I thought that I will speak. That last week I spoke about the different levels of defilements that defiles our mind, and then as a result, we have to work to purify our mind. So there are different ways to purify our mind, and those are different ways to purify mind. One quite interesting in the book if I remember correctly, it explains from the insight to the ethics, whereas the actual book itself, when it explains from the foundation, which is the sila. So here, the purification of our mind, we can do it by insight knowledge. And that insight knowledge is understanding that all conditioned dhammas are subject to change, and because of that change we normally have this dissatisfaction and a fear, and this is actually non-existence. So a person who sees that, then one will be purifying the mind. So that's the insight knowledge. Sorry. And now this is called sabbe sankhara anicca, sabbe sankhara dukkha, sabbe dhamma anattati. So this is, once someone who understands it, then we can purify. That's the one way. So another way is called absorption way, the jhanas, and that's the separation for some time. And that separation is like there is similes are given, like you are covering the grass with a stone, then the grass, grasses under the stone kind of died, but as soon as you take out the stone, the sun hits, then the grass will grow. Same in our mind, as long as we are concentrating on something and fully focused on, then those defilements will be suppressed. Okay? So as a result, when we are meditating initial stage, we are instructed to focus on the object, so that rest of other defilements, whether the sensual pleasure, ill will, restlessness, sloth and torpor, or the doubts, these will just suppressed. Doesn't mean that it is not there, suppressed there. So that's how when we can, this is another way of suppressing, another way of purifying the mind. Now this is the moment again when we able to suppress it, there's so many other avenues will arise. We call avinya, 5 avinyas, not of 6. 5 avinyas arises, which is the ability to hear, ability to see, ability to predict, ability to contact with the so-called invisible beings, and those things. So there is a possibility of having those. Now if you are not mindful enough and aware of it, then the possibility that that can be harmful for you too, or you may have harmful intentions because of these qualities you have. So we have to be very careful in that moment too, because once you have suppressed it properly, there are the different levels of the jhanas arises, and with that the jhanas, mind becomes so pure, at least during that time, then these qualities will just sprout out. So that's why that's very important to be mindful on that, and our practice is not to be attached to these abilities. These are there, we know it can be, but we are not interested on that. Right? And then further, the third one is called avoiding unwholesome activities, but try to do the wholesome activities. Right? Whenever we do things, whenever we realize that our intention is going to do unwholesome, then avoiding it with our own intention, with our courage. Like even to say something, you may want to say let's say, a bad word, and suddenly your mind, and I think, oh, this is not a wholesome one. You stop there. So that's also a way of purifying. Or even to do something, you want to, let's say you almost hit somebody, and then suddenly you realize, okay, stopping there, and then moving on to the wholesome deed. So that's also another way of purifying the mind. So cultivating the good things. And then the last one, which is the sila, or the virtue, being a virtuous man. So the practicing the virtues, and this practicing virtues, well, again, it's like intentionally taking on board that these are the rules and I'm not going to do. So in a gross level, we are purifying our mind in that level. When we are doing that,
isn't it avoiding? Isn't it like the third one, avoiding?
Third one is avoiding, but this one is intentionally. So the third one is exchanging. So rather than doing unwholesome, doing wholesome. The fourth one, the fourth one, the virtuous is like you are taking certain rules that I'm going to practice this, I'm not going to avoid it. So that's a different. And then here, the fourth one, it's also known as abstaining or refraining. So it's intentionally you vow to refrain from committing these rules. So that's it. One is naturally you're refraining it because of the customs and the society that you are living in. These are the things that you're not supposed to do, and you are doing it and you're not committing that. Whereas another one is like you take on, right, and then you practice it. So you practice so that you can avoid doing something that is clouds the mind or pollutes the mind, whereas not doing it, it cleans the mind. And that is, and then not only, but another next one is called a samucheta bahana, which is the very top level. We cannot do that, and this is the level that only done by someone who is a liberated one. Right? So that is the samucheta bahana. You're able to uprooting all the upakilesas that is embedded in our consciousness. Right?
Who can do that?
Sorry?
Who can do that? The last one you said.
Arahats. So it's the noble ones that they can do. So that's fine. This is something the bit hard one, right? And there's lots to take on. So it can make you bored, and it can make you, it's not my cup of tea, and it can make you feel like, what? Okay, so this again kind of, these all like a philosophy or like a theory, it doesn't make sense to me, why I am here. Can happen, these feelings. So, but again, these are just the philosophies, so you don't have to believe in completely, but if you really want to look for furthering in the practice, then it's advisable to have some ideas of these things happen, and this is simply ways to like creating the foundation for the furthering on. Right? So next week I will talk on the virtues, which will be the first purification on the 7 purifications. Right? So I offer this as a reflection on this 7 virtues for today. So before we practice meditation, if you have any questions, you may raise. Anybody? No?
So Buddha Gosha is the one who compiled all this together?
Which?
Buddha Gosha is the one who compiled all these 7 Visuddhis together?
No. Buddha Gosha took it from the sutta And then Buddhaghosa compiled using these 7 Visuddhis to compile this Visuddhi Magga, categorizing into 3: Sila, Samadhi, Panya. So the morality, concentration, and wisdom. So in the you weren't here last week.